Physics by Aristotle. Chapter 1. Since about all methods of which there are principles, or causes, or elements, it happens that we obtain knowledge and science from the knowledge of these, for we then think that we know anything when we know the first causes and the first principles of it, and as far as to the elements from which it is composed. This being the case, it is evident that we should first endeavour to define those things which pertain to the principles of the science concerning nature. But the natural path in which we should proceed is from things more known and manifest to us, to things which are more manifest and known to nature. For that which is known to us is not the same with that which is simply known. Hence it is necessary to proceed, after this manner, from things more obscure to nature, but which are more manifest to us, to things more manifest and known to nature. To us, however, things which are more confused are at first evident and clear, but afterwards from these, to those who divide them, the elements and principles become known. On this account it is necessary to proceed from universals to particulars, for the whole is more known according to sense, and that which is universal is a certain whole, since it comprehends many things as parts. Names also are after a certain manner thus affected with respect to definition, for they signify a certain whole, and this indefinitely, as for instance a circle, but definition divides it into its several parts. Children also at first call all men fathers, and all women mothers, but afterwards they distinguish each of these. Chapter 2. But it is necessary that there should either be one principle or more than one, and if one, that it should either be immovable, as Parmenides and Melissos say, or moved, as the natural philosophers assert, some of whom say that the first principle is air, and others water. But if there are more principles than one, it is necessary that they should be either finite or infinite, and if finite and more than one, that they should be either two, or three, or four, or some other number. But if infinite, it is requisite that either they should be, as Democritus asserts, one in genus, but different in figure or species, or also contraries. In a similar manner, likewise, they enquire who investigate the number of beings. For they enquire in the first place whether the things from which beings consist are one or many, and if many, whether they are finite or infinite, so that they enquire, with respect to principle and element, whether they are one or many. To consider, therefore, whether being is one and immovable does not belong to the speculation concerning nature. For just as a geometrician can no longer discourse with him who subverts the principles of geometry, but this is either the province of another science, or of that which is common to all the sciences, so neither can he who speculates concerning physical principles discourse with him who denies those principles. For there is no longer a principle if there is only one thing, and if it is thus one. For principle is either the principle of a certain thing, or of a certain number of things. To consider, therefore, in this manner whether there is one principle resembles a discourse against any thesis whatever which is advanced for the sake of argument, such as against the Heraclitean thesis, or if any one should say that being is one man. It also resembles the solution of the litigious argument which the assertions both of Melissos and Parmenides contain. For they assume that which is false, and are unsyllogistic. But the argument of Melissos is more troublesome, and is not the subject of doubt. One absurdity, however, being admitted, other things happen as the consequence, but this is attended with no difficulty. We indeed suppose that with respect to things which have a natural subsistence, either all or some of them are moved. And this is manifest from induction. At the same time, however, it is not proper to solve all the arguments, but those only in which some one, demonstrating from principles, concludes falsely; for such as do not thus conclude are not to be solved. Thus, for instance, with respect to the quadrature of lunules, that which is effected through segments it is the business of a geometrician to solve, but it is not the province of a geometrician to solve that of Antiphon. However, though Parmenides and Melissos do not discourse concerning nature, yet, as it happens that their assertions are attended with physical doubts, it will perhaps be well to speak a little concerning these, for the consideration of these is philosophic. Chapter III. Since, however, being is multifariously predicated, we shall begin in a manner the best adapted of all others to the subject, if we consider what those mean who assert that all things are one; whether they conceive that all things are essence, or quantities, or qualities; and again, whether all things are one essence, as, for instance, one man, or one horse, or one soul; or whether they are one quality, and this such as a thing white, or hot, or anything else of this kind. For all these very much differ from each other, and cannot be made the subject of discourse. For if all things are substance or essence, quantity and quality, whether these are separated from each other or not, beings will be many. But if all things are quality or quantity, whether essence has a subsistence or not, an absurdity will ensue, if it be necessary to call that absurd which is impossible. For none of the rest is separate except essence, since all of them are predicated of essence as their subject. But Melissos says that being is infinite. Being, therefore, is a certain quantity, for the infinite subsists in quantity. But it is not possible that essence, or quality, or a participated property should be infinite, except according to accident, viz. From certain quantities subsisting together. For the definition of the infinite employs quantity, but not essence or quality. If, therefore, there are essence and quantity, being will be two things and not one. But if being be essence alone, it will not be infinite, nor possess any magnitude, for it will be a certain quantity. Besides, since the one itself is predicated multifariously, just as being is, let us consider after what manner they say that the universe is one. But that is called one which is either continuous or indivisible, or when the definition unfolding the essence is one and the same, as in methu and oinos, wine. If, therefore, being is continuous, it is many, for the continuous is divisible to infinity. There is a doubt, however, with respect to part and whole, though perhaps it does not belong to this discussion, but is to be considered by itself, whether part and whole are one, or more than one; likewise, how they are one, or more than one, and if they are more than one, after what manner they are so. The same consideration also pertains to parts, which are not continuous; and if each is one with the whole, as being indivisible, whether in this case they are the same with each other. If, however, being is one as indivisible, nothing will be a quantity or a quality, neither will being be infinite, as Melissos says it is, nor finite, as it is said to be by Parmenides. For bound is indivisible, not that which is bounded. But if all beings are one in definition, in the same manner as a garment and a robe, it happens that they will make the assertion of Heraclitus; for there will be the same essence of good and evil, and of that which is not good and good, so that what is not good and good will be the same. Man, likewise, will be the same with horse, and the consideration will not be whether all things are one, but whether they are nothing. The quality also and the quantity of a thing will be the same. Posterior philosophers also, as well as the ancient, were disturbed, lest it should happen to them that the same thing should at the same time be one and many. Hence some of them took away the word is, as was the case with Lycophron. But others reformed the language, and did not say that a man is white, but that he grows white, or that a man is walking, but that he walks; lest, by adding the word is, they should make the one to be many, as if the one or being were to be predicated in one way only. Beings, however, are many, either by definition, as, for instance, the essence of that which is white is different from the essence of a musician, and yet both are in the same subject, whence also the one is many; or by division, as whole and parts. Here, however, they doubt and acknowledge the one to be many, as if it were not possible for the same thing to be one and many; but yet they do not on that account admit the subsistence of opposites, for the one is both in capacity and energy. To those, therefore, who employ these arguments, it appears to be impossible that beings should be one. Chapter IV. It is likewise not difficult to solve the arguments from which they demonstrate. For both Melissos and Parmenides syllogize litigiously, since they assume that which is false, and their arguments are not conclusive. The argument of Melissos, however, is more troublesome, and does not contain a doubt. But one absurdity being admitted, the rest happens as the consequence of this, a circumstance which it is not at all difficult to suppose. That Melissos, therefore, paralogizes is evident, for he fancies it should be assumed that if everything which is generated has a beginning, that which is not generated has not a beginning. In the next place, this also is absurd, to fancy that there is a beginning of everything, and not of time only, and that there is a beginning of generation, not only of that which is simple, but also of change according to quality, as if there were no mutation produced collectively and at once. Besides, why is being immovable if it be one? For as a part being one, as for instance, this water is moved in the same place, why is not this also the case with the universe? And in the next place, why will there not be change according to quality? To which we may add, that neither is it possible to be one in species, except according to the material cause. For according to this mode, some of the natural philosophers say that being is one, but not according to the other mode; for man is different in species from horse, and contraries from each other. Against Parmenides, also, there is the same mode of reasoning, though there are certain arguments which are peculiar to him, partly because he assumes that which is false, and partly because his arguments are not conclusive. He assumes that which is false, so far as he considers being to be simply predicated, when at the same time it is predicated multifariously, And his arguments are inconclusive, because if things which are white were alone assumed, since that which is white signifies one thing, there would nevertheless be many white things, and not one alone; for that which is white will not be one alone, either by continuity or definition, since the essence of whiteness will be different from that of its recipient, and it will not follow that nothing will have a separate subsistence besides whiteness, for there is no difference so far as it is separate, but the essence of whiteness and of that in which it subsists are different. This, however, Parmenides had not yet seen. It is necessary, therefore, that those who assert that being is one should not only assume that being signifies one of which it is predicated, but also that it truly is, and truly is one. For accident is predicated of a certain subject, so that if being is one accident, that to which being is an accident will not have any subsistence, since it is different from being. Hence there will be something which is not being. It is requisite, therefore, that Parmenides should assume that which is properly and essentially being. For accident will not have the essence of being, unless being signifies many things, so that each may be some particular thing. But it is supposed that being signifies one thing. If, therefore, that which is properly being is not an accident to anything, but something else is an accident to it, why should that which is properly and essentially being signify being rather than non-being? For if that which is properly being is the same as that which is white, but the essence of white is not properly and essentially being, for it is not possible that anything can be an accident to it. If this be the case, since there is no being except that which is truly and properly being, that which is white will not be being. It will not, however, be non-being, as if it were some particular non-entity, but it will be entirely non-being. Hence, that which is properly and essentially being is non-being, for the assertion is true that it is white, but this signifies non-being, so that if that which is white signifies being properly and essentially so called, being will signify many things. Hence, neither will being have any magnitude, since it is truly and essentially being, for the being of each of the parts of magnitude is different. But that being, properly so called, may be divided into something else which is properly and essentially being, is evident to reason. Thus, for instance, if man is something which is properly being, it is necessary that animal also and biped should each of them be essentially being. For if they are not truly beings, they will be accidents. They will either, therefore, be accidents to man, or to some other subject. This, however, is impossible. For that is, and is said to be an accident which may or may not be inherent, or in the definition of which that is inherent to which it is an accident. Thus, for instance, to sit is an accident, as that which may be separated, but in a flat nose the definition of nose is inherent, to which we say flatness is an accident. Farther still, with respect to such things as are inherent in a definitive sentence, or from which a thing consists, in the definition of these, the definition of the whole is not inherent. For instance, in biped, the definition of man is not inherent, nor in that which is white is the definition of a white man contained. If, therefore, these things subsist after this manner, and biped also is an accident to man, it is necessary that it should be separate, so that it may happen that man may not be a biped, or in the definition of biped, the definition of man will be inherent. This, however, is impossible, for the former is inherent in the definition of the latter. But if biped and animal are accidents to any other subject than man, and neither of them is a certain being, properly and essentially so called, man also will be in the number of things accidental to something different from themselves. Let, however, that which is properly and essentially being be that which is not an accident to anything, and of which both and each of the essential parts, and that which consists from these, are predicated. The universe, therefore, consists from indivisibles. Some, however, have assented to both the assertions, to the one because all things are one, if being signifies one, since there is also non-being, but to the other by making from bisection indivisible magnitudes. But it is evident that it is not true, if being signifies one, and it is not possible for contradiction to be simultaneous, that there will be no such thing as non-being. For nothing hinders but that non-being, though it has not simply a subsistence, yet may be a certain non-being. The assertion, therefore, that all things will be one, if there is not anything else besides being itself, is absurd. For who can understand being itself to be anything else than that which is properly and essentially some particular being? But if this be the case, nothing prevents the subsistence of a multitude of beings in the manner we have mentioned. That it is impossible, therefore, for being to be thus one is manifest. End of Chapter 4 of Book 1. Chapter 5. The assertions of the natural philosophers may be referred to two modes, for some of them making being to be one, viz. Body, which is a subject, and this either one of the three elements, or something else which is more dense than fire, but more attenuated than air, generated the rest of things, making many things by density and rarity. But these are contraries, and universally they are excess and defect, just as Plato says they are the great and the small, except that he makes these to be matter, but the one to be form. But they make the one which is the subject to be matter, and the contraries to be differences and forms. Others separate from the one the contrarieties which are inherent in it, as Anaximander, and those who assert that beings are one and many, as Empedocles and Anaxagoras, for they separate from that which is mixed the rest of things. They differ, however, from each other, because the one makes a circulation of these, but the other asserts that they subsisted once only, and the one says that they are infinite of similar parts and contraries, but the other that they are those things only which are called elements. But it seems that Anaxagoras thought they were thus infinite because he conceived that the common opinion of natural philosophers was true, that from nothing nothing is produced. Hence they say, quote, all things together were, and, quote, generation is in quality a change. But others said that generation is concretion and separation. Farther still, Anaxagoras was induced to this opinion from contraries being generated from each other, and hence he concluded that they were inherent in each other. For if it is necessary that whatever is generated should either be generated from beings or from non-beings, and it is impossible that things should be generated from non-beings, for in this opinion all physiologists accord, they thought that what remains must necessarily happen, viz. That they must be generated from beings, and these such as are inherent, but that they were not perceived by us through the smallness of their bulk. Hence they say that everything is mingled in everything, because they saw that everything is generated from everything. But they assert that things appear different, and are denominated different from each other, from that which especially transcends, through the multitude of infinites in the mixture. For they say that the whole is not genuinely white, or black, or sweet, or flesh, or bone, but that what each particular possesses in greater abundance than other things is the nature of that thing. If, therefore, the infinite, so far as infinite is unknown, that which is infinite, according to multitude or magnitude, is a certain unknown quantity, but that which is infinite according to form is a certain unknown quality. But if principles are infinite, both according to number and according to form, it is impossible that the things consisting from these should be known. For thus we apprehend that we know a composite when we know from what, and from how many things it consists. Again, if it is necessary that when the part of a thing may be of an indefinite magnitude, that thing also should itself be indefinitely great or small. But I mean some one of such parts into which, being inherent in the whole itself is divided. And it is impossible for an animal or a plant to be of indefinite dimensions, according to magnitude and parvitude. If this be the case, it is manifest that no one of the parts can be indefinitely great or small. For if it could, this must also be the case with the whole. But flesh and bone and things of this kind are parts of an animal, and fruits are parts of plants. It is evident, therefore, that it is impossible for flesh or bone or anything else to be indefinitely great or small. Besides, if all such things are inherent in each other, and are not generated, but, being inherent, are separated, and are denominated from that which is more abundant; if also anything is generated from anything, as for instance, water from flesh by secretion, and flesh from water, and if every finite body is consumed by a finite body, it is evident that everything cannot be inherent in everything. For flesh being taken from water, and again other flesh being generated from the remaining water by secretion, though that which is separated will be always less, yet at the same time it will not surpass a certain magnitude in smallness. Hence, if the secretion should stop, everything would not be inherent in everything, for in the remaining water flesh will not be inherent. But if it should not stop, and there should be a perpetual ablation in a finite magnitude, there would be equal finites, infinite in multitude, which is impossible. To which we may add, that if any body necessarily becomes less when something is taken from it, but the quantity of flesh is definite, both in magnitude and parvitude, it is evident that from the smallest flesh no body will be separated, for otherwise there would be a less than the least. Besides, in infinite bodies, infinite flesh would now be inherent, together with blood and brain, and these would be separated from each other, would no less have a subsistence, and each of them would be infinite. This, however, is absurd. But it is not sagaciously, though it is rightly asserted by Anaxagoras, that one thing will never be entirely separated from another, for passions, i.e. accidents, are inseparable from substance. If, therefore, colours and habits are mingled, if they are separated, there will be something white or salubrious, which will not be anything else, and which will not be predicated of a subject, so that intellect, by investigating things impossible, will act absurdly, if it wishes indeed to separate. It is impossible, however, for this to be done, as well according to quantity as according to quality. It is not possible according to quantity, because there is not a least magnitude; nor according to quality, because accidents are inseparable. Nor does he rightly assume that generation consists from things which possess a similar form. For clay is partly distributed into clay, and partly not. Nor are water and air produced from each other and generated in the same manner as tiles from a house, and a house from tiles. But it is better to assume principles less in number and finite, as Empedocles makes them to be. Chapter 6. All philosophers, therefore, make principles to be contraries, as well those who say that the universe is one and not moved. For Parmenides makes principles to be the hot and the cold, and these he denominates fire and earth, as those who introduce as principles the rare and the dense. But Democritus makes principles to be the solid and the void, of which the former, he says, has the relation of being, but the latter of non-being. Besides this, he distinguishes the solid by position, figure, and order, for these are the genera of contraries. By position, as upwards, downwards, behind, before. By figure, as angular and without angles, straight and circular. That all philosophers, therefore, in a certain respect, make principles to be contraries is manifest. And it is reasonable that they should; for it is necessary that principles should neither be produced from each other, nor from other things, and that from these all things should be generated. But these requisites are inherent in the first contraries; for because they are first, they are not from other things, and because they are contraries, they are not from each other. But it is necessary to consider how it happens that all things originate from principles. In the first place, therefore, it must be assumed that in the universality of things nothing is naturally adapted to act casually upon anything, or to be casually acted upon by anything; nor is anything disposed to be generated from anything, unless some one considers these things as taking place according to accident. For how can that which is white be generated from that which is musical, unless the being musical happens to that which is white or black? But white is generated from that which is not white, and this not from everything which is not white, but from black, or some one of the intermediate colors. That which is musical also is generated from that which is not musical, yet not from everything which is not, but from that which is void of music, or something, if there be any such thing, which subsists between these. Neither is a thing corrupted into any casual first. Thus, for instance, white is not corrupted into that which is musical, unless perhaps according to accident, but into that which is not white, and this not into anything not white, which may occur, but into black, or some intermediate color. In like manner, that which is musical is corrupted into that which is not musical, and this not into anything unmusical which may occur, but into that which is void of music, or into something between these, if there be any such thing. The like also takes place in other things, because things which are not simple, but composite, subsist according to a similar reasoning. As, however, the opposite dispositions are not denominated, we are ignorant that this circumstance happens; for it is necessary that everything which is harmonized should be generated from that which is void of harmony, and that which is void of harmony from that which is harmonized. It is also necessary that what is harmonized should be corrupted into a privation of harmony, and this not casually, but into its opposite. But there is no difference whether this is asserted of harmony, or of order, or composition, for it is evident that the same reasoning will apply to all these. A house also, a statue, and anything else are generated after a similar manner. For a house is generated not from the particulars from which it is composed, being so composed as to form the house, but from their being separated. And a statue and anything which is figured are generated from a privation of figure, and each of these is partly order and partly a certain composition. If, therefore, this is true, whatever is generated from contraries, and whatever is corrupted into contraries, and into the media which subsist between these. But these media subsist from contraries, as, for instance, intermediate colours subsist from white and black. Hence, all things which are generated by nature are either contraries or from contraries. Thus far, therefore, nearly, the ancient philosophers have advanced together with us, and most others, as we have before said. For all of them assert that the elements, and those things which are called by them principles, are contraries, though they establish them without reason, as if they were compelled to assert this by truth itself. They differ, however, from each other in this, that some of them assume prior and others posterior principles, and some of them things more known according to reason, but others such as are more known according to sense. For some establish the hot and the cold, others the moist and the dry, others the odd and the even, and others strife and friendship, as the causes of generation. But these differ from each other in the manner above mentioned. Hence, in a certain respect, they assert the same things, and speak differently from each other. They assert different things, indeed, as is also apparent to most men, but the same things so far as they speak analogously. For they assume principles from the same coordination, since of contraries some contain and others are contained. Hence they speak similarly and differently, and worse and better, and some indeed establish things more known according to reason, as we have before observed, but others such as are more known according to sense. For universal is known according to reason, but that which is particular according to sense, since universals are the objects of reason, but particulars of sense. Thus, for instance, the great and the small are more known according to reason, but the rare and the dense according to sense. That it is necessary, therefore, that principles should be contraries is evident. Chapter VII. After this, it follows that we should say whether there are two, or three, or more principles. For it is impossible that there should be one principle only, because contraries are not one. But there cannot be infinite principles, because if this were admitted, being would not be an object of scientific knowledge. There is also one contrariety in every one genus, but essence is one certain genus. The causes also of all natural things may be better assigned from finite principles, as Empedocles does, than from infinite principles. For Empedocles thinks that he unfolds all things from finite, in the same manner as Anaxagoras from infinite principles. Farther still, some contraries are prior to others, and some are generated from others, as, for instance, the sweet and the bitter, the white and the black. But it is necessary that principles should always remain. From these things, therefore, it is evident that there is neither one principle, nor infinite principles. But since they are finite, there is some reason why they should not be considered as two alone. Some one, however, may doubt how density is naturally adapted to produce rarity, or rarity density, and in like manner with respect to any other contrariety whatever. For friendship does not conjoin strife, or produce anything from it, nor does strife make anything from friendship, but both produce a certain other third thing. But some assume many principles, from which they constitute the nature of things. To which may be added, that the following doubt may be urged by some one, unless another nature is introduced as a subject to contraries. For we see that contraries are not the essence of any thing, and principle ought not to be predicated of any subject, since if it were, there would be a principle of a principle, for subject appears to be the principle, and to be prior to that which is predicated of it. Farther still, we say that essence is not contrary to essence. How, therefore, will essence consist from things which are not essences? Or how will non-essence be prior to essence? Hence, if some one should think that what is before asserted is true, and should also admit the truth of what is now said, it is necessary, if he wishes to preserve both assertions, that he should introduce a certain third thing as a subject to contraries. Just as they say who affirm that the universe is one certain nature, such as water or fire, or that which subsists between these. But it appears that the subject is rather that which subsists between the elements, for fire and earth, air and water are complicated with contrarieties. Hence they do not act absurdly who make the subject to be different from these. But of the rest, they think more rightly who make air to be the subject, for air has less sensible differences than the rest, and water follows air. All, however, give form to this one thing from contraries, as for instance from density and rarity, and from the more and the less. And these things, in short, are excess and defect, as was before said. This opinion, too, appears to be ancient; I mean, that the one, excess and defect, are the principles of things, except that the ancients did not consider these principles after the same manner as the moderns. For the ancients asserted that two of these principles are active, but that the one is passive. But certain of the moderns assert, on the contrary, that the one is active, but that the two are rather passive. The assertion, therefore, that there are three elements may appear to have some weight, as we have before observed, to those who, from these and other speculations of the same kind, consider the affair. It is not, however, probable that there are more than three principles, for one principle is sufficient for the purpose of being passive. But if there are four principles, there will be two contrarieties, and it will be necessary that a certain other middle nature should subsist as a subject separate from both. If, too, they are able to generate from each other, the other of the contrarieties will be superfluous. At the same time, however, it is impossible that there should be many first contrarieties. For essence is one certain genus of being, so that principles will differ from each other in prior and posterior alone, but not in genus. For in one genus there is always one contrariety, and all contrarieties appear to be referred to one. That there is neither one element, therefore, nor more than two or three, is evident. But which of these assertions is the more true is, as we have said, attended with much doubt. End of chapter 7 of Book 1. Chapter 8. We therefore shall speak as follows. First, discussing the whole of generation, for it is conformable to nature, having first considered such things as are common, to contemplate afterwards the peculiarities of any individual. For we say that one thing is generated from another, and a different thing from a different thing, when we speak either of things simple, or of such as are composite. My meaning is this: a man may become a musician. Something also which is not musical may become a musician. Or a man who is not a musician may become a musical man. That which is simply generated, therefore, I call man, and that which is not musical. The simple which is generated I call that which is musical. But the composite, of which there is a generation, and which is generated, I consider as subsisting when we say that a man who is not a musician becomes a musician. But of these, the one is not only said to have become this particular thing, but also to have been generated from this particular thing; as, for instance, a musician from that which is not a musician. But the other is not predicated of all things; for a musician is not generated from a man, but a man becomes a musician. Of things, however, which are generated, as we say that things simple are generated, one thing, when in generation, or becoming to be, remains, but the other does not remain. For man remains, and is in becoming a musician; but that which is not musical, and that which is void of music, neither simply nor in a composite manner remains. But these things being defined from everything which is generated, this may be concluded by any one who directs his attention to it, that it is necessary, as we have said, there should always be something which is the subject of generation. And this, though it is one in number, yet is not one in form. For by one in form I mean the same thing as one in definition. For the essence of man, and of that which is void of music, are not the same. And the one indeed remains, but the other does not remain. That which is not opposed remains, for man remains; but that which is musical and that which is void of music do not remain. Nor does that which is composed from both remain; as, for instance, an unmusical man. But that something should be generated from something, and that something should not become this particular thing, each of these is rather predicated of things which do not remain; as, for instance, that which is musical is said to be generated from that which is void of music, but not from man. Nevertheless, this is sometimes similarly asserted of things which remain. For we say that a statue is generated from brass, and not that the brass is generated a statue. Of that, however, which is opposed, and does not remain, the predication is made in both ways, viz. This particular thing is said to be generated from that, and that particular thing is said to be generated this. A musician also is generated from that which is void of music, and he who is void of music becomes a musician. Hence also the like takes place in the composite; for from an unmusical man, a man void of music is said to have become a musician. Since, however, the term generation is multifariously predicated, and some things are said not to be generated simply, but to be generated this particular thing, but simply to be generated is the property of essences only; this being the case, in other things it is evident that there must necessarily be something which is the subject of generation. For quantity and quality, that which is a relative, when and where, become the subjects of a certain thing, because essence alone is predicated of no other subject, but all other things are predicated of essence. But that essences and such other things as have a simple subsistence are generated from a certain subject will become evident to him who considers this affair. For there is always something which is placed under these, from which the thing produced is generated; as, for instance, plants and animals from seed. But things which are simply generated are generated partly by a mutation of figure, as a statue from brass, and partly by addition, as things which are increased. Some, too, are generated by ablation, as mercury from a stone, but others by composition, as a house. Others again are generated by a change in quality, as things which are varied according to their matter. But it is evident that all such particulars as are thus generated are generated from subjects, so that from what has been said it is manifest that everything generated is always a composite, and there is something indeed which is generated, but there is also something which this thing becomes. And this which is generated is twofold, for it is either the subject or the opposite. I mean that what is void of music is opposed, but that man is the subject. I also call the privation of figure, form, or order that which is opposed, but the brass, the stone, or the gold the subject. It is evident, therefore, if those things are the causes and principles of things subsisting from nature, from which primarily they derive their being, and are generated not from accident, but what each is said to be according to essence, it is evident, if this be the case, that everything is generated from subject and form. For a musical man is composed after a certain manner from man and musician. For you dissolve reasons, definitions, into the reasons of them. It is evident, therefore, that things generated are generated from these. The subject, however, is one in number, but two in species. For man and gold, and in short, matter, are numerable. For it is more this particular thing, and that which is generated is not generated from it according to accident. But privation and contrariety are accidents. Form, however, is one principle, as for instance, order, or music, or some one of other things which are thus predicated. Hence the principles may be said to be two, and they may also be said to be three. They are also partly contraries, as if some one should speak of that which is musical, and that which is void of music, or of the hot and the cold, or the harmonized and that which is deprived of harmony. They are likewise partly not contraries, for it is impossible for contraries to be passive to each other. This, however, is solved because the subject is different, for this is not contrary, so that principles after a manner are neither more than contraries, but two, as I may say, in number. Nor again are they entirely two, because their essence is different, but three. For the essence of man is different from the essence of that which is void of music, and also the essence of that which is void of figure is different from that of brass. What the number, therefore, is of the principles of natural things, which are conversant with generation, and after what manner they are so many, has been declared. It is also evident that it is necessary something should subsist as a subject to contraries, and that the contraries should be two, but that after a certain manner this is not necessary. For the other of the contraries will be sufficient, by its absence and presence, to the production of change. But the subject nature may be scientifically known according to analogy. For as is the brass to the statue, or the wood to the bed, or matter and that which is deprived of form to anything else which possesses form before it receives form, so is this subject nature to essence, to this particular individual thing, and to being. This, therefore, is one principle, though it is not one, nor being in such a manner as this particular individual thing. Another principle is form, and further still, the contrary to this, privation. But with respect to these, how they are two, and how they are more than two, has been declared above. In the first place, therefore, it has been said that principles are contraries only, and in the next place, that it is necessary something else should be admitted as a subject, and that there should be three principles. But from what has been now said, it is evident what the difference of the contraries is, how the principles are related to each other, and what is their subject. It is not, however, yet manifest whether form, or the subject is the essence of a thing, but that the principles are three, and how they are three, and what the mode is of their subsistence is evident. Hence, how many principles there are, and what they are, may be from these things surveyed. Chapter 9. But that the doubt of the ancients can only be thus solved, we shall in the next place show. For the first philosophers, in investigating the truth and nature of things, wandered, as if led by ignorance, into a certain other path. Hence they say that no being is either generated or corrupted, because it is necessary that what is generated should be generated either from being or non-being. But both these are impossible, for neither can being be generated, since it already is, and from nothing nothing can be generated, because it is necessary that something should exist as a subject. And thus increasing that which consequently happened, they said that there were not many things, but that being itself alone had a subsistence. They therefore entertained this opinion for the above-mentioned reasons. We, however, say that for a thing to be generated from being or non-being, or for non-being or being to do or suffer anything, or for this particular individual thing to become anything whatever, in one way does not in any respect differ from asserting that a physician does or suffers anything, or that anything is or is generated from a physician. So that, since this is predicated in a twofold respect, it is evident that this will also be the case with the assertion that from being, being will either be an agent or patient. A physician, therefore, builds, not so far as he is a physician, but so far as he is a builder, and he becomes white, not so far as he is a physician, but so far as he is black. But he heals, and becomes deprived of medical skill, so far as he is a physician. Since, however, we say with the greatest propriety that a physician does or suffers anything, or is generated from a physician, when he suffers or does these things, so far as he is a physician, it is also evident that to assert a thing is generated from non-being signifies this, so far as it is non-being, which indeed the ancient philosophers, not distinguishing, deviated from the right path, and through this ignorance added so much to their want of knowledge as to fancy that nothing else was generated or had a being, but they subverted all generation. We ourselves, indeed, say that nothing is simply generated from non-being, but that at the same time it may be generated from non-being, as it were, according to accident. For a thing may be generated from privation, which is non-being per se, since it is not inherent in the thing which is generated. But this is admirable, and it seems impossible that anything should be thus generated from non-being. In like manner, we say that neither is anything generated from being, nor is being generated except according to accident. We likewise assert that this takes place after the same manner as if animal should be generated from animal, and a certain animal from a certain animal, as for instance a dog from a horse. For the dog would be generated not only from a certain animal, but also from animal, though not so far as it is animal, because it is this already. But if it should come to pass that anything should be generated an animal not from accident, it will not be from animal. And if anything is generated being, it will not be generated from being, nor from non-being. For we have observed that the expression from non-being signifies so far as it is non-being. We likewise do not subvert the assertion that everything is or is not. This, therefore, is one mode of solving the doubt. Another mode is this, that the same things may be predicated according to capacity, and according to energy. This, however, in other treatises we have more accurately discussed, so that, as we have said, the doubts are solved, through which the ancients were compelled to subvert some of the above-mentioned particulars; for on this account they so much wandered from the way which leads to generation and corruption, and in short to mutation. Since this nature, if they had perceived it, would have dissolved all this their ignorance. Chapter X. Certain other philosophers, indeed, have mentioned this nature, but not sufficiently. For, in the first place, they acknowledge that something may be simply generated from non-being, so far as they confess that Parmenides is right in what he asserts. In the next place, it appeared to them that if this nature is one in number, it is also only one in capacity. There is, however, in this case a great difference, for we say that matter and privation are different, and of these, matter indeed is non-being according to accident, but privation is non-being per se. Matter likewise is near, and is in a certain respect essence, but this is by no means the case with privation. Others again assert that the great and the small are similarly non-being, either both together, or each separate from the other, so that this mode of the triad entirely differs from that. For thus far they proceeded, so as to conclude that there must necessarily be a certain nature as a subject, and this they made to be one. For though a certain person introduces the duad, asserting that this subject nature is the great and the small, nevertheless he makes it to be the same, because he neglects the other principle, viz. Privation. Matter, indeed, remaining, is a concause, together with form, of generated natures, having the relation of a mother; but the other nature, privation, which is a part of contrariety, may often seem to him who directs his dianoetic power to its noxious nature to have no subsistence whatever. For since there is something divine, good, and desirable, we say that there is one thing contrary to it, and another which is naturally adapted to desire and extend itself towards it. But from the assertions of some it happens that what is contrary desires the corruption of itself, though neither is it possible that form can desire itself, because it is not indignant of itself, nor that which is contrary to itself, for contraries are corruptive of each other. But this which desires is matter, just as the female desires the male, and the deformed the beautiful. The deformed, however, does not essentially desire the beautiful, nor the female the male, but the desire of both is according to accident. Matter, however, is partly corrupted and generated, and partly not. For so far as it is that in which it is essentially corrupted, since that which is corrupted, viz. Privation, is in matter. But so far as it subsists according to capacity, it is not essentially generated and corrupted, but it is necessary that it should be incorruptible and unbegotten. For if it were generated, it is necessary that something which ranks as a first nature should subsist as the subject of it, from which, being inherent, it is generated. But this is its nature, so that it will be before it is generated. For I call matter the first subject of every thing from which a thing is generated, when it is not accidentally inherent. And if anything is corrupted, it will ultimately arrive at this, so that matter will be corrupted before it is corrupted. Concerning the principle, however, which subsists according to form, whether it be one or many, and what it is, or what they are, it is the business of the first philosophy accurately to determine, so that it must be deferred till that time. We shall, however, speak in what will be hereafter demonstrated concerning natural and corruptible forms. That there are principles, therefore, and what they are, and how many in number, let it be thus determined by us. Let us, however, again speak from another beginning. End of chapter 10 and end of book 1. Chapter 1 of book 2. Of beings, some subsist from nature, but others through other causes from nature. Indeed, animals subsist in their parts, together with plants and simple bodies, such as earth and fire, air and water. For we say that these, and things of this kind, subsist from nature. But all the things we have enumerated appear to differ from those which do not consist from nature. For all such things as subsist from nature appear to contain in themselves a principle of motion and permanency, some according to place, others according to increase and diminution, and others according to changing quality. But a bed, a garment, and anything else of this kind, so far as they obtain these appellations, and so far as they are produced by art, have no innate impulse of mutation. So far, however, as it happens to them to be stony or earthy, or mingled from these, so far they possess this impulse, nature being, as it were, a certain principle and cause of motion and rest, to that in which it is primarily inherent, essentially, and not according to accident. I say, not according to accident, because a man may be the cause of health to himself, in consequence of being a physician. At the same time, however, he possesses medicine, not so far as he is made well, but it happens that the same person is a physician and acquires health. Hence, these are sometimes separated from each other. In a similar manner, everything else which is made subsists, for none of them contains in itself the principle of making, but some of them have this principle in other things, and external to themselves, as a house and everything else which is made by the hand, and others have it in themselves indeed, yet not essentially, viz., such things as are causes to themselves from accident. Such, therefore, is nature. But those things possess nature which contain a principle of this kind. And all these are essences or substances. For nature is always a certain subject, and is in a subject. These things, too, are said to subsist according to nature, and such as are essentially inherent in these. Thus, for instance, fire tends upwards according to nature, for this property is not nature, nor does it possess nature, but is by nature and according to nature. What nature, therefore, is has been said, and also what a subsistence is, by and according to nature. But to attempt to demonstrate that nature is, would be ridiculous, for it is evident that there are many beings of this kind, and to demonstrate things apparent through such as are unapparent is the province of one who is incapable of judging what is essentially, and what is not essentially known. That some, however, may be thus affected is not immanifest, for one who was blind from his birth may reason about colours. So that men of this kind must necessarily discourse about names, but understand nothing of the subject of their discourse. But to some, nature, and the essence of things which subsist from nature, appears to be that which is first inherent in everything, and which is essentially destitute of order and ornament. Thus, for instance, wood is the nature of a bed, and brass of a statue, of which, according to Antiphon, this is a token, that if some one should bury a bed, and the rottenness should receive a germinating power, a bed would not be generated, but wood; as if the disposition, which is according to rhythm and art, were inherent from accident, but the essence that which remains, and which to these things is continually passive. If also each of these is affected after the very same manner towards something else, as for instance brass and gold towards water, but bones and wood towards earth, and in like manner anything else, these things, he says, are their nature and essence. Hence, by some earth, by others fire, by others air, and by others water, is said to be the nature of things. And by others this is asserted of some, and by others again of all of these. For that which some one of these apprehends to be a thing of a certain quality, whether it be one or many, this and so many, they say, is every essence; for all other things are the passions, habits, and dispositions of these. They also asserted that any one of these whatever is perpetual, because no change is produced in them from themselves, but that other things are infinitely generated and corrupted. According to one mode, therefore, nature is thus denominated, viz., the first subject matter to everything which contains in itself the principle of motion and mutation. But after another mode it is denominated form which subsists according to definition. For as art is called that which subsists according to art, and that which is artificial, so likewise nature is both called that which is according to nature, and that which is natural. Nor must we say that anything, for instance a bed, possesses a subsistence according to art, if it is a bed only in capacity, and has not yet the form of a bed. Nor must we say that it is art. Neither in things which consist from nature must this be asserted; for that which is flesh or bone in capacity does not yet possess its proper nature until it receives form according to definition, by defining which we say what flesh is, or bone. Nor does it subsist by nature, so that the nature of things which contain in themselves a principle of motion will be after another manner morphe and form, which are not separate except according to definition. But that which is composed from these is not nature, but consists from nature, as for instance man. And this is nature in a greater degree than matter; for everything is then said to be, when it is form in energy (entelecheia), rather than when it is in capacity. Farther still, man is generated from man, but a bed is not generated from a bed. Hence they say that not the figure, but the wood is nature, because if it should germinate, it would not become a bed, but wood. If, therefore, this is art, form also is nature, for man is generated from man. Again, nature, considered as generation, is a path to nature, for it does not subsist in the same manner as healing, which is said to be a path not to medicine but to health, since it is necessary that healing should be procured from medicine, and not lead to medicine. Nature, however, does not thus subsist with respect to nature, but that which is born proceeds or takes its beginning from something to something. To what, then, does it proceed? Not to that from which, but to that to which. Form, therefore, is nature. But form and nature are predicated in a twofold respect, for privation also is in a certain respect form. Whether, however, privation and something contrary do or do not subsist about simple generation will be considered hereafter. Chapter II. Since, then, we have defined in how many ways nature is predicated, let us after this consider in what a mathematician differs from a natural philosopher. For natural bodies have superficies and solidities, lengths and points, about which the mathematician speculates. We must also consider whether astrology, i.e., astronomy, is different from, or a part of physics. For if it is the business of a natural philosopher to know what the sun or moon is, but not any of the essential accidents pertaining to these, an absurdity will ensue, especially Because those who discourse concerning nature appear also to speak concerning the figure of the sun and moon, and to inquire whether the earth and the world are spherical or not. The mathematician, therefore, is also employed about these, yet not so far as each of them is the boundary of a natural body. Nor does he contemplate the accidents of these so far as they happen to things of this kind, and on this account he separates them from their subjects, for they are separable by intellection from motion. This, however, is of no consequence, nor is falsehood produced by those who thus separate. But they do not perceive that they do this, who assert that there are ideas, for they separate natural things, which are less separable than such as are mathematical. And this will become manifest if any one endeavors to unfold the definitions of each, that is to say, as well of things themselves as their accidents. For the odd and the even, the straight and the curved, and still further, number, line, and figure, are without motion, but this is not the case with flesh and bone and man. For these are denominated in the same manner as a flat nose, and not in the same manner as that which is curved. This also is evident from the more physical of mathematical concerns, such as optics, music, and astrology, for in a certain respect they subsist contrary to geometry. For geometry speculates concerning a physical line, but not so far as it is physical, and optics considers indeed a mathematical line, yet not so far as it is mathematical, but so far as it is physical. Since, however, nature is twofold, viz., form and matter, we should contemplate physical things as if we were considering, with respect to flatness of nose, what it is. Hence, things of this kind are neither without matter, nor do they subsist according to matter. For some one also may doubt concerning this, since there are two natures, viz., which of these the natural philosopher makes the object of his contemplation, or whether he considers that which consists from both these. But if that which consists from both, he also speculates each of these natures. Whether, therefore, is it the province of the same or of a different science to know each of these? For if we look to the ancient philosophers, it would seem that matter alone should be regarded by the natural philosopher. For Empedocles and Democritus attended but in a small degree to form, and the very nature or essence of a thing. But if art imitates nature, and it is the province of the same science to know form and matter to a certain extent, as, for instance, it is the province of a physician to know health, bile, and phlegm, and in like manner of an architect to know the form and matter of a house, viz., that the matter consists of tiles and wood, and similarly with respect to other things, if this be the case, it is also the province of the physical science to have a knowledge of both natures. Further still, it belongs to the same science to know that for the sake of which a thing subsists, the end and such things as exist for the sake of these. But nature is an end, and that for the sake of which a thing subsists. For of those things of the motion of which, since it is continued, there is a certain end, this end is the last, and that for the sake of which the motion subsists. Hence the poet was ridiculously led to say, quote, "An end it has, for which it was produced." For not everything which is last deserves the name of end, but that which is the best. Since, however, the arts produce matter, some of them simply, but others accommodated to the work, and we use all these as if they subsisted for our sake, for we also in a certain respect are an end, since that for the sake of which a thing subsists is considered in a twofold respect, as we have observed in our books concerning philosophy. This being the case, there are two arts which rule over and possess a knowledge of matter, viz., the art which uses it, and that which is architectonic of effective arts. Hence also that which uses matter is in a certain respect architectonic. They differ, however, so far as the one, viz., the architectonic, has a knowledge of form, but the other is called architectonic as being productive of matter. For the pilot knows what form the rudder of a ship should have, and orders it to be made. But another artist knows from what wood and what motions it will be made. In those productions, therefore, which are according to art, we make the matter for the sake of the work, but in natural productions it already exists. Again, matter belongs to the class of relatives, for a different matter pertains to a different form. How far, therefore, ought a natural philosopher to know form and what a thing is? Shall we say in the same manner as a physician ought to know a nerve? Or a brazier brass to a certain extent? For everything which is produced by nature is for the sake of something, and natural philosophy is conversant with those things which are separable, indeed in form, but are in matter. For man and the sun generate man. But how that which is separable subsists, and what it is the business of the first philosophy to determine. Chapter 3. These things being defined, let us consider, with respect to causes, what they are, and how many there are in number. For since this treatise is for the sake of knowing natural things, and we do not think that we know anything till we are in possession of the cause on account of which that thing subsists, and this is to be in possession of the first cause, this also must be done by us in discoursing concerning generation and corruption, and all physical mutation, that knowing the principles of these, we may endeavour to refer to them each of the objects of investigation. Cause, therefore, is after one manner said to be that from which, being inherent, something is produced. As, for instance, brass is the cause of the statue, silver of the bowl, and the genera of these. But after another manner, cause is form and paradigm, and this is the definition of the essence of a thing, and the genera of this. Thus, for instance, the form of the diapason is 2 to 1, and in short, number, and the parts which are contained in the definition. Further still, cause is that whence the first principle of mutation or rest is derived. Thus he who consults is a cause of this kind, and a father of his child, and in short the maker of that which is made, and that which changes of that which is changed. Again, cause is as the end, and this is that for the sake of which, as health of walking. For why does he walk? We say that he may be in health, and having thus said, we think that we have assigned the cause. This cause also is seen in such things as are for the sake of the end, when something else moves which has an intermediate subsistence. Thus leanness, or purgation, or medicines, or instruments are for the sake of health, for all these are for the sake of the end. They differ, however, from each other, because some of them are works, and others instruments. Causes, therefore, are nearly predicated in so many ways. But it happens, since causes are multifariously predicated, that there are also many causes of the same thing, and this not from accident. Thus the statuary's art and the brass are causes of the statue, not according to anything else, but so far as it is a statue, yet not after the same manner, but the one is a cause, as matter, and the other as that whence motion is derived. Some things also are the causes of each other. Thus, labour is the cause of a good habit of body, and a good habit of body of labour, though not after the same manner, but the one as the end, and the other as the principle of motion. Again, the same thing is the cause of contraries. For that which when present is the cause of this effect, is sometimes when absent said by us to be the cause of a contrary effect. Thus we say that the absence of the pilot is the cause of the loss of the ship, the presence of whom is the cause of its safety. But all the causes which we have now enumerated fall into four most manifest modes. For letters are the causes of syllables, matter is the cause of things which consist from workmanship, fire and things of this kind are the causes of body, parts of the whole, and hypotheses of the conclusion, all which are causes as that from which a thing proceeds. Of these causes, however, some are as a subject, as for instance parts, but others as essences, viz., whole, composition, and form. But seed, a physician, he who consults, and in short, he who makes, are all of them causes, as that whence the principle of mutation, or permanency, or motion is derived. Others again are causes as the end, and the good of other things; for that for the sake of which a thing subsists ranks as that which is best, and the end of other things. It makes, however, no difference whether we say the end is good itself, or apparent good. Such, therefore, and so many are the species of causes. The modes of causes, however, are many in number, but they will be fewer when collected into a sum. For causes are multifariously predicated, and of those which are of a similar species, one is prior and posterior to another. Thus the physician and the artist are the causes of health, the double and number of the diapason, and always things which contain are thus related with respect to particulars. Causes also are predicated as accidents, and the genera of these. Thus Polyclitus is in one way the cause of the statue, and in another way the statuary, because it happens to the statuary to be Polyclitus. Those things likewise which contain accident are called causes, as if man, or in short animal, should be the cause of a statue. Of accidents also some are more remote and proximate than others; as if, for instance, something white and a musician should be said to be the cause of a statue. But besides all these causes, and those which are denominated according to accident, some things are called causes from the power which they possess, and others from the energy which they exert. Thus the builder is the cause of the house being built, or the builder when building. The like also may be said in those things of which the causes are such as we have above enumerated. Thus, for instance, there is a cause of this particular statue, or of statue, or in short, of image. There is also a cause of this brass, or of brass, or in short of matter, and in a similar manner with respect to accidents. These two and those are denominated connectedly. For instance, not Polyclitus, nor a statuary, but Polyclitus the statuary. At the same time, however, all these are in multitude six, but they are predicated in a twofold respect. For they are predicated either as particulars, or as genus, or as subsisting according to accident, or as the genus of accident, and either as these connectedly, or simply considered. All these too subsist either energizing or according to capacity. They so far, however, differ that the energizers of particulars at the same time exist, and cease to be with the things of which they are the causes. Thus this man who heals is contemporary with him who is healed, and this builder with the building. But causes which are denominated according to capacity do not always subsist together, for the house and the builder do not perish at one and the same time. It is, however, necessary always to investigate the supreme cause of everything, as in our investigations of other things. Thus, for instance, a man builds because he is a builder, but he is a builder according to the building art. This, therefore, is the prior cause, and so in everything. Further still, it is necessary to investigate the genera of genera, and particulars of particulars, as a statuary is the cause of a statue, but this statuary is the cause of this statue. We should also explore the capacities of capabilities, and the energizers of things affected by energy. How many causes, therefore, there are, and after what manner they are causes, let it be considered as sufficiently defined by us. Chapter 4. Fortune also and chance are said to be in the number of causes, and many things are said both to be and to be produced through fortune and chance. Let us consider, therefore, after what manner fortune and chance subsist in these causes, and whether the former of these is the same with or different from the latter, and in short, what each of them is. For with some it is dubious whether these things have a subsistence or not. For, say they, nothing is produced from fortune, but there is a certain definite cause of all such things, as we say are produced from chance or fortune. Thus, for instance, the cause of a man fortuitously coming into the forum, and there finding what he wished indeed to find, but did not think he should, is the wish of buying something when he came into the forum. In like manner, in other things which are said to originate from fortune, some cause may always be assigned, and not fortune. For if fortune were anything, it would truly appear to be absurd, and some one might doubt why no one of the ancient wise men, when assigning the causes of generation and corruption, has ever defined anything concerning fortune. As it seems, however, they did not think that anything is produced from fortune. But this is wonderful. For many things are produced, and have a subsistence from fortune and chance, and though they were not ignorant that each of these may be referred to a certain cause of things which are generated according to the ancient assertion which subverts fortune, yet at the same time they all say that some of these are from fortune, and others not. Hence some mention should have been made by them of fortune. They did not, however, think that fortune was anything belonging either to friendship or strife, or fire or intellect, or anything else of things of this kind. They are chargeable, therefore, with absurdity, whether they did not conceive that it had a subsistence, or whether fancying that it had, they omitted it, especially since it was sometimes employed by them. Thus Empedocles says that the air is not always separated in the highest place, but just as it may happen, for in his Cosmopoeia he says, quote, "Thus it then chanced to run, though varying oft." He also says that the greater part of the members of animals were generated from fortune, but there are some who assign chance as the cause of this heaven, and of all mundane natures, for they say that the revolution and motion which distinguishes and establishes the universe in this order are from chance. And this indeed is well worthy of admiration, that they should say that animals and plants neither subsist, nor are produced from fortune, but either nature, or intellect, or something else of this kind, is the cause of them. For not anything casual is produced from each seed, but from that an olive, and from this a man. But that the heavens, and the more divine of things apparent, should be produced from chance, and that of these there should be no such cause, as they acknowledge there is of plants and animals. Indeed, if it were so, this very thing will be worthy of consideration, and it will be well to say something concerning it. For beside the absurdity of what is said, the assertion is still more absurd, when we see that nothing in the heavens is produced from chance, and that in things which do not originate from fortune, many things happen fortuitously, though it is reasonable to suppose that the very contrary should take place. There are some, however, to whom fortune appears to be a cause, but immanifest to human conception, as being something divine and more demoniacal, so that we must consider what each of these is, and whether chance and fortune are the same with, or different from each other, and how they fall into definite causes. End of chapter 4 of Book 2. Chapter 5 of Book 2. In the first place, therefore, since we see that some things are always generated after the same manner, but others for the most part, it is evident that neither fortune, nor that which proceeds from fortune, can be said to be the cause of either of these, either of that which is from necessity and always, or of that which is for the most part. But since there are certain things which are generated and have a subsistence besides these, and all men acknowledge that these originate from fortune, it is evident that fortune and chance are each of them a certain thing. For we know that things of this kind are from fortune, and that what originates from fortune is a thing of this kind. But of things which are generated, some are generated for the sake of something, but others not. And of these some are produced from deliberate choice, and others not. But both these rank among things which are produced for the sake of something. Hence it is evident that both in things which neither subsist from necessity, nor for the most part, there are some in which a subsistence for the sake of something may take place. But such things subsist for the sake of something as are accomplished by the dianoetic power, and also such as are produced by nature. Things of this kind, however, when they are produced from accident, are said by us to subsist from fortune. For as, with respect to being, one kind has an essential, but another an accidental subsistence, the like also may take place with respect to cause. Thus, that which is capable of building is the essential cause of the house, but that which is white or musical from accident. Essential cause, therefore, is definite, but cause, according to accident, indefinite. For an infinite number of things may happen to one thing. As we have said, therefore, when this takes place in things which are produced for the sake of something, then they are said to be from chance and from fortune. We shall, however, afterward explain in what these differ from each other. But at present this will be evident, that both these rank among things which subsist for the sake of something. Thus, for instance, a man would have come for the sake of receiving silver, in order that he might take back with him money, if he had known that he could. He did not, however, come for the sake of this, but it happened that he came and did this for the sake of taking back the money, and this not in consequence of coming for the most part, or necessarily to that place. The end, however, i.e., the taking back the money, is not in the number of causes which are in the thing itself, but ranks among things which proceed from deliberate choice, and the dianoetic power, and then it is said to have proceeded from fortune. But if from previous choice, and for the sake of this, he had either always come, or for the most part, taking back with him the money, in this case his coming would not have been from fortune. It is evident, therefore, that fortune is a cause from accident in things which rarely happen, according to the deliberate choice of those things which subsist for the sake of something. Hence the dianoetic power and fortune are conversant with the same thing, for deliberate choice is not without the dianoetic power. It is necessary, therefore, that those causes should be indefinite from which that may be produced which is from fortune, whence fortune appears to belong to the indefinite, and to be immanifest to man. In a certain respect also it may seem that nothing is produced from fortune, for all these things are rightly because they are reasonably asserted. For in a certain respect a thing is produced from fortune, viz. From accident, and fortune is a cause as accident, but simply considered, it is not the cause of anything. Thus a builder is the cause of a house, but a piper from accident, and of a man coming into the forum and taking back with him money, when he did not come for this purpose, the causes are infinite in multitude, for the causes might be the wish to see, pursue, inspect, or avoid some one. It is rightly said, therefore, that fortune is something contrary to reason, for reason is either of things which always are, or of those which frequently subsist. But fortune belongs to things which are contrary to these. Hence, since things which are thus causes are indefinite, fortune also is indefinite. At the same time, however, some one may doubt whether anything casual can become the cause of fortune; as, for instance, whether wind or heat is the cause of health, and not the head having been shaved. For of causes according to accident, some are more proximate than others. But good fortune is then said to take place when something good, and bad fortune when something bad happens. Prosperous and adverse fortune, too, are then said to subsist when these are attended with magnitude. On this account, when we want but little of receiving a great evil or good, our fortune is then adverse or prosperous, because the dianoetic power asserts this as if it subsisted; for that which wants but little seems as if it wanted nothing. Besides, prosperous fortune is deservedly unstable, for fortune itself is unstable, since none of the things which proceed from it can either have a perpetual or a frequent subsistence. Chapter 6. Both fortune and chance, therefore, are, as has been said, causes according to accident, since they belong to things which can neither subsist simply nor frequently, and also to such as may be produced for the sake of something. They differ, however, because chance has a more extended subsistence; for that which is from fortune is also from chance, but not everything which is from chance is also from fortune. For fortune and that which proceeds from fortune are in those things in which prosperity of fortune, and in short, action, may subsist. Hence it is necessary that fortune should be conversant with things of a practical nature, of which this is a token, that prosperous fortune (eutouchia) appears to be either the same with, or near to, felicity (eudaimonia). But felicity is a certain action, for it is good action (eupraxia), so that such things as are incapable of acting cannot do anything from fortune. And on this account, neither anything inanimate, nor brute, nor infant can do anything from fortune, because they have not any deliberate choice. Nor does either prosperous or adverse fortune pertain to these, except according to similitude. For thus Protagoras said that the stones are fortunate from which altars are constructed, because they are honoured, though others are trampled on of a kindred nature. To suffer also from fortune belongs in a certain respect to these things, when he who does anything pertaining to these does it from fortune; otherwise it does not belong to them. But chance belongs to other animals, and to many inanimate things. Thus we say the horse came by chance, because when he came he was saved, though he did not come for the sake of being saved. We also say that the tripod fell by chance, for it stood for the sake of being sat on; it did not, however, fall for the sake of being sat upon. So that it is evident that in things which are simply produced for the sake of something, when they are not produced for the sake of that which happens, and the cause of which is external, then we say they are produced from chance. But of these, those things are from fortune which are produced from the chance pertaining to objects of deliberate choice, by those endued with deliberate choice. This may be inferred from the word matein, in vain, because a thing is then said to be done in vain when that is not effected for the sake of which it was done. But something else, as for instance walking, if it is for the sake of evacuation. But if this does not happen to him who walks, we say that he has walked in vain, and that his walking is vain, as if this word signified that which is naturally undertaken for the sake of something else, when it does not affect that for the sake of which it was undertaken, and for which it is naturally adapted. For if any one should say that he has washed in vain because the sun is not set, he would be ridiculous, since the former was not undertaken for the sake of the latter. Thus, therefore, chance, ta automaton, has a subsistence according to its name when a thing is done in vain. For a stone fell not for the sake of striking any one. It fell therefore by chance, because it might have fallen, being thrown by some one for the sake of striking. But that which subsists from fortune is especially separated from chance in things which are produced by nature. For when anything is made contrary to nature, we then do not say that it is made by fortune, but rather that it is produced from chance. This also is different, for the cause of that is external, but of this internal. And thus we have shown what chance, and also what fortune is, and in what they differ from each other. With respect, however, to what pertains to the mode of cause, each of these ranks among those causes whence the principle of motion is derived. For the cause of these always belongs to those things which are produced by nature, or by the dianoetic power, and the multitude of these is indefinite. But since chance and fortune are the causes of those things of which intellect or nature might be the cause, viz. When anything becomes from accident the cause of these very things, and nothing which subsists from accident is prior to things essential, it is evident that neither can cause which is from accident be prior to that which is essential. Chance and fortune, therefore, are posterior both to intellect and nature. Hence, if chance were in an eminent degree the cause of the heavens, it would nevertheless be necessary that intellect and nature should be a prior cause, as well of many other things as of this universe itself. Chapter 7. That there are causes, therefore, and that they are as many in number as we have said, is evident. For the inquiry why a thing is comprehends so many in number. For the question why a thing is either referred to essence, which is an extreme in things immovable, as in the mathematics, since the question here is ultimately referred to the definition of a right line, or of the commensurate, or something else, or it is referred to the first mover, as for instance, why did they fight? Because they have robbed. Or for the sake of what? That they might obtain dominion. Or cause is, in things which are generated, matter. That these are causes, therefore, and that they are so many, is evident. But since causes are four in number, to know them all is the business of the natural philosopher, who, also referring the cause why a thing is to all of them, viz. To matter, form, that which moves, and that for the sake of which a thing subsists, physically assigns a reason. Frequently, however, three of these causes pass into one. For the cause why a thing is, and that for the sake of which it is, are one. But that whence motion first originates is in species the same with these, for man generates man, and in short, such things as being moved move. But such things as do not move, being moved, no longer pertain to physical inquiries, for they move not in consequence of containing in themselves motion, or the principle of motion, but as being immovable. Hence there are three treatises, one concerning that which is immovable, another concerning that which is moved, indeed, but is incorruptible, and a third concerning corruptible natures, so that the cause why a thing is assigned by him who refers to matter, to essence, and to the first mover. For concerning generation, they especially consider causes after this manner: what is generated after what, and what a thing first did or suffered, and thus always in a consequent order. But there are two principles which are naturally motive, of which one is not physical, because it does not contain in itself the principle of motion. And if there is anything which moves without being moved, it is of this kind, as is that which is perfectly immovable. that which is the first of all things, together with essence and form. For it is the end, and that for the sake of which a thing subsists. So that since nature is for the sake of something, it is also necessary to know this cause. The cause, too, why a thing subsists, must be entirely assigned. For instance, it is necessary this thing should be produced from that, and this either simply or for the most part. It is also necessary to know if this particular thing will follow, as for instance the conclusion from the propositions. Also, that this is the essence of a thing, and because it is thus better, not simply, but with reference to the essence of each particular. Chapter 8. In the first place, then, we must assign the reason why nature ranks among the number of causes which subsist for the sake of something. And in the next place, we must show how necessity subsists in physical concerns. For all natural causes are referred to this cause. Thus, because that which is hot is naturally a thing of this kind, also that which is cold, and all such particulars, hence these things necessarily are, and are generated, and possess natural aptitudes. For though they assign another cause, yet as they merely mention it, they dismiss it. One of these, indeed, assigning as causes friendship and strife, but another intellect. But it is dubious what should hinder nature from operating for the sake of something, and because it is better so to operate, and not in the same manner as Jupiter reigns, not that the corn may be increased, but from necessity. For that which is elevated must necessarily be refrigerated, and that which is refrigerated, when it becomes water, must descend. But it happens that in consequence of this taking place, the corn is increased. In like manner, if the corn on the ground of any one is destroyed, it does not rain for the sake of this, that it may be destroyed, but this is an accidental circumstance. What then hinders but that the parts in nature may thus subsist? For instance, that the teeth should arise from necessity, those in front, indeed, sharp, and adapted to divide, but the grinders broad, and adapted to breaking the food in pieces. For it may be said that they were not made for the sake of this, but that it so happened. And in like manner with respect to the other parts of the body, to which a subsistence for the sake of something appears to belong. Where, therefore, all things happened as if they were made for the sake of something, these were preserved, being aptly composed from chance. But such things as were not thus made, these were lost and still perish, according to what Empedocles says concerning the bull species with human heads. This, therefore, and a similar reason, if there be any such, may lead some one to doubt on this subject. It is, however, impossible that these things should subsist after this manner. For these, and everything which is produced by nature, are either always, or for the most part, thus produced. But this is not the case with anything which is produced from fortune and chance. For neither does it appear to be from fortune or chance that it frequently rains in the winter. But if this should be the case when the sun is under the dog star, it might be said to be the effect of these two. Nor when there is heat under the dog star is it a casual event, but when this is the case in winter. If, therefore, these things appear to be either from chance or for the sake of something, and if it is not possible that they can be from chance, they must be for the sake of something. All such things, however, subsist from nature, as is even acknowledged by those who make these assertions. There is, therefore, a subsistence for the sake of something in things which are produced by and exist from nature. Again, in things in which there is a certain end, that which is prior and that which has a consequent subsistence are affected for the sake of this end. As, therefore, it is affected, so is it naturally adapted to be affected, and according to the natural aptitude of anything, such also, unless there is some impediment, is it affected. But it is affected for the sake of something, and hence it is naturally adapted to be affected for the sake of this. For instance, If a house ranked in the class of things which are produced by nature, it would be produced by nature in such a manner as it is now by art. But if things which are the offspring of nature were not only produced by nature, but also by art, they would in a similar manner be produced according to their natural aptitude. The one, therefore, would be for the sake of the other, and in short, art partly perfects what nature is incapable of bringing to perfection, and partly imitates nature. If, therefore, things artificial are produced for the sake of something, it is evident that this is also the case with things which have a natural subsistence. For things posterior with respect to prior are similarly affected towards each other, both in artificial and natural productions. This, however, is especially manifest in other animals, whose productions are neither the effect of art, nor investigation, nor consultation. Hence it is doubted by some whether spiders and ants and animals of this kind operate from intellect or something else. But to him who thus gradually proceeds, even in plants things which contribute to the end will be apparent, as for instance leaves are produced for the sake of covering the fruit. Hence, if the swallow forms her nest, and the spider her web, naturally and for the sake of something, and if plants produce leaves for the sake of the fruit, and the roots do not tend upward but downward for the sake of nutriment, it is evident that a cause of this kind belongs to the class of things which are produced by and subsist from nature. Since also nature is twofold, one kind being as matter, but another as form, which last is an end, and the rest are for the sake of the end. This will be a cause for the sake of which natural productions subsist. Error also takes place in things artificial, for a grammarian has written incorrectly, and a physician has improperly administered the medicine, so that it is evident that this also happens in natural productions. If, therefore, there are certain artificial things in which rectitude subsists for the sake of something, but in things erroneous art is attempted for the sake of something, but deviates from the end, the like also takes place in the productions of nature, so that monsters will be the errors of that which operates for the sake of something. In the first constitution of things, therefore, the bull species with human heads, if there were such animals, must have been produced from the corruption of a certain principle, as things are now produced from the corruption of seed. Further still, it is necessary that seed should have been first produced, and not immediately animals, and that soft mass which first subsisted was seed. In plants also there is that which subsists for the sake of something, but it is less distinct. Whether, therefore, or not, as there were the bull species with human heads, so also in plants there were the vine species with the anterior part resembling olives. This, indeed, is absurd, yet it would be necessary, since it also happened in animals. Again, it would be necessary that there should be a casual generation in the seeds of things, and in short, he who asserts this subverts both that which subsists from nature and nature itself. For those things subsist from nature, which, being continually moved from a certain principle contained in themselves, arrive at a certain end. From each principle, however, neither the same thing is produced in each individual, nor that which is casual, but it always arrives at the same end unless something impedes. But that for the sake of which, and that which is for the sake of this, may subsist from fortune. Thus we say that a stranger came fortuitously, and having redeemed a certain person departed, when he so acted as if he came for the sake of this, and yet did not come on this account, and when he did this from accident. For fortune belongs to causes which subsist according to accident, as we have before said. But when this happens, either always, or for the most part, then it is neither from accident nor fortune. In natural productions, however, it is always so, unless something impedes. It is also absurd to fancy that things are not produced for the sake of anything, unless that which moves is seen to have deliberated. though art also does not deliberate. For if the shipbuilding art were in the timber, it would make similar to nature. So that if there is a subsistence for the sake of something in art, there will also be this in nature. But this is especially evident when any one heals himself, for to this man nature is similar. That nature, therefore, is a cause, and in such a manner as to operate for the sake of something, is evident. Chapter 9. With respect to necessity, however, whether does it subsist from hypothesis or simply? For now they fancy that a subsistence from necessity is in generation, just as if some one should think that an edifice was raised from necessity, because heavy things are naturally carried downward, and light things upward, and that on this account the stones and foundation of the building are beneath, but the earth above on account of its levity, and the wood especially in the highest place because it is most light. At the same time, however, the building is not made without these, and yet not through these, except as through matter, but it is made for the sake of concealing and preserving certain things. The like also takes place in everything else in which there is a subsistence for the sake of something. For they are not indeed without these, which have a necessary nature, and yet they are not through or on account of these, except as matter, but they are for the sake of something. Thus, for instance, why is the saw such an instrument as it is? That it may be this thing, and for the sake of this thing. But this subsistence for the sake of something could not be effected unless it were made of iron. It is necessary, therefore, that it should be made of iron, if it is to be a saw, and the work of it is to have a subsistence. Hence the necessary is from hypothesis, and not as the end. For necessity is in matter, but a subsistence for the sake of something in reason. But after a certain manner the necessary is similarly in the mathematical disciplines, and in things which are produced according to nature. For since this particular thing is rectilinear, i.e. a triangle, it is necessary that a triangle should have angles equal to 2 right. But it does not follow that because it has angles equal to 2 right, it is a triangle, though without the possession of this equality of angles, it is not a triangle. The contrary, however, takes place in things which are produced for the sake of something. For if the end will be or is, that also which antecedes will be or is. But if not, as there, when the conclusion is not, the principle will not be, so here likewise the end, and a subsistence for the sake of something will not be, for this is a principle not of action, but of reasoning. There, however, it is the principle of reasoning, for they are not actions. Hence, if the house will be, it is necessary that these things should be made, or subsist, or be, or in short, that matter itself should subsist for the sake of something, as for instance, stones and tiles, if the house is to be. Yet the end is not on account of these things, except as matter. And in short, unless these exist, neither the house nor the saw will have a subsistence, not the former unless there are stones, nor the latter unless there is iron. For neither in the above-mentioned instance are there principles, unless a triangle has angles equal to 2 right. It is evident, therefore, that the necessity which is in natural things is that which is denominated as matter, and the motions of this. And both causes indeed are to be considered by the natural philosopher, but in a greater degree that for the sake of which a thing subsists. For this is the cause of matter, but matter is not the cause of the end. The end also, that for the sake of which, and the principle are assumed from definition and reason. Thus, in things artificial, since a house is a thing of a certain description, it is requisite that these particulars should be produced and subsist from necessity. And since health is this particular thing, it is necessary that these things should be generated and exist. Thus, too, if man is this particular thing, these particulars must exist, And if the latter is, the former also must have a subsistence. Perhaps also there is the necessary indefinition. For the work of the saw, by him who defines it, will be said to be a certain division, but this will not be unless it has teeth of a certain description, and it will not have these unless it be made of iron. For in definition there are certain parts, which are as it were the matter of the definition. End of Book 2. Chapter 1 of Book 3. Since, however, nature is a principle of motion and mutation, and the method with us is concerning nature, it is necessary that we should not be ignorant what motion is. For, this being unknown, nature also must necessarily be unknown. And as we intend to define motion, we must also endeavour, after the same manner, to discuss those things which are consequent to this. But motion appears to belong to things continuous, and the infinite first presents itself to the view in that which is continuous. Hence it frequently happens that those who define the continuous employ the nature of the infinite, as if that which is divisible to infinity is continuous. To which we may add that it is impossible for motion to subsist without place and void and time. It is evident, therefore, that for these reasons, and because these things are common and universal to all things, we should in the first place make each of these the object of consideration, for the speculation of peculiarities is posterior to that of things common. But first, as we have said, we must direct our attention to motion. There is then something which is in energy only, and there is something which is both in energy and capacity. One thing also is this particular thing, another so much in quantity, and another of a certain quality, and in like manner in the other categories of being. But of relatives, one is predicated according to excess and defect, another according to the effective and passive, and in short, the motive, and that which may be moved. For the motive is motive of that which may be moved, and that which may be moved by that which is motive. Motion, however, has not a subsistence separate from things. For that which is changed is always changed, either according to essence, or according to quantity, or according to quality, or according to place. But in these, as we have said, nothing common can be assumed which is neither this particular thing, nor a participant of quantity or quality, nor of any one of the other categories. Hence there will not be either motion or mutation of anything except the particulars we have mentioned. But each of the categories subsists in a twofold manner in all things. Thus, with respect to this particular thing, one thing pertaining to it is form, and another privation. In quality, one thing is white, and another black, and in quantity, one thing is perfect, and another imperfect. In like manner also in lation, one thing is above and another beneath, or one thing is light and another heavy, so that the species of motion and mutation are as many as those of being. But since in every genus of things there is that which is in entelecheia, and that which is in capacity, motion is the entelecheia of that which is in capacity, so far as it is in capacity. Thus, change according to quality is the energy of that which may be so changed, so far as it is capable of this change, and increase and diminution are the energies of that which may be increased, and of its opposite, that which may be diminished, for there is no name common to both. Generation and corruption also are the energies of that which may be generated, and of that which may be corrupted. And lation is the energy of that which may be locally moved. But that this is motion is hence evident. For when that which may be built so far as we say it is such is in energy, it is then built, and this is building. In like manner with respect to discipline, healing, rolling, and leaping, and a progression to manhood and old age. However, though some things are the same both in capacity and energy, yet not at the same time, or not according to the same, but, for instance, a thing may be hot in capacity, but cold in energy, and many things act upon and are passive to each other, for each of these will be at the same time effective and passive, hence that which naturally moves is also movable, for everything of this kind moves, since it is also that which is moved. To some, therefore, it appears that everything which moves is moved. Whether, however, this be true or not, will be manifest from some other of our writings. For there is something which moves, and is itself immovable. But motion is the entelechia of that which is in capacity, when, being in entelechia, it energizes, not so far as it is that which it is, but so far as it is movable. I say, so far as it is movable, for brass is in capacity a statue, yet at the same time motion is not the energy of the brass so far as it is brass, since the essence of brass is not the same as something which is movable in capacity. For if they were simply the same, and according to definition, motion would be the energy of the brass, so far as it is brass. They are, however, as we have said, not the same, and this is evident in contraries. For that which has the capacity of being well, and that which has the capacity of being diseased, differ from each other, since otherwise to be diseased would be the same thing as to be well. But the subject, that which is well, and that which is diseased, whether it be humour or blood, are one and the same. But since that which is in capacity is not the same according to definition as that which is in energy, as neither is colour the same as that which is visible, it is evident that motion is the entelechia of that which is in capacity, so far as it is in capacity. That there is this energy, therefore, and that a thing then happens to be moved when this energy exists, and neither prior nor posterior to it, is manifest. For everything is able at one time to energize, and at another not. As, for instance, that which is capable of being built, so far as it is capable. And the energy of that which is capable of being built, so far as it is thus capable, is building. For building is either this, the energy of that which is capable of being built, or it is the house. But when the house is, it will no longer be that which is capable of being built. That, however, is built which is capable of being built, and hence it is necessary that building should be the above-mentioned energy. But building is a certain motion, and the same reasoning will apply to other motions. That what we have asserted too is well said is also evident from what others have said concerning motion, and from it not being easy to define it otherwise. For neither motion nor mutation can be placed in any other genus, nor have those who have advanced a different opinion concerning it spoken rightly. But this will be evident to those who consider the affair. For by some motion is said to be difference, inequality, and non-being, though it is not necessary that any one of these should be moved, neither if they be different, nor if they be unequal, nor if they be non-beings. Neither is mutation into these, nor from these, rather than from their opposites. But the reason why they referred motion to these things is this, that motion appears to be something indefinite, and the principles of the other coordination are indefinite because they are privative. For no one of them is this particular thing, nor of a particular quality, nor does it belong to any of the other categories. The cause, however, why motion appears to be indefinite is because it can neither be simply referred to the capacity, nor to the energy of beings. For neither that which has the capacity of being a definite quantity is moved from necessity, nor that which is a definite quantity in energy. Motion, too, appears to be a certain energy, but imperfect, the cause of which is that the capacity of that is imperfect of which the energy is motion. On this account it is difficult to apprehend what motion is, for it is necessary to refer it either to privation, or to capacity, or to simple energy, but it does not appear that it can be any one of these. The above-mentioned mode, therefore, remains, viz., that it is a certain energy, but such an energy as we have said it is, difficult indeed to be perceived, but which may have a subsistence. Chapter 2. But, as we have said, everything which moves is moved, being movable in capacity, and of which the immobility is rest, since the immobility of that to which motion is present is rest. For to energize with respect to that which is movable, so far as it is movable, is to move. But it effects this by contact, so that at the same time also it suffers. Hence motion is the energy of that which is movable, so far as it is movable, and this happens from the contact of that which is motive, so that at the same time it likewise suffers. But that which moves always introduces a certain form, either this particular thing, or of such a quality, or of a definite quantity, which will be the principle and cause of the motion when it moves. Thus man in energy makes man from man, which is in capacity. That also which is the subject of doubt is evident, viz., that motion is in the movable thing, for it is the energy of this, and is derived from that which is motive. The energy likewise of that which is motive is not different, for it is necessary that both should be energy, since it is motive because it has the capacity of being so, and moving because it energizes. But it is energetic of the movable, so that in a similar manner there is one energy of both. Just as there is the same interval of one with respect to two, and of two with respect to one, and also between acclivity and declivity, for these are one, but the definition is not one. The like also takes place in the mover and that which is moved. There is here, however, a logical doubt. For perhaps it is necessary that there should be a certain energy different from that which is effective and that which is passive, since the one is a producing or making, but the other is passion. But with respect to work and end, of this indeed it is effect, but of that passion. Since, therefore, both are motions, if they are different, in what will they be inherent? For either both are in that which suffers and is moved, or the making is in the maker, but the passion in the patient. But if it be necessary to call this also making, it will be homonymous. If, however, this be the case, motion will be in that which moves, for there is the same reason of that which moves, and of that which is moved. Hence, either everything which moves will be moved, or that which possesses motion will not be moved. But if both action and passion are in that which is moved and suffers, and also teaching and discipline, which are two, are in the learner, then in the first place the energy of each thing will not be in each, and in the next place it is absurd that two motions should be at once moved. For there will be certain mutations of quality, two of one subject, and to one form, which is impossible. Will there be one energy? But it is absurd that there should be one and the same energy of two things different in species. There will be, however, if discipline and teaching, action and passion are the same. To teach also will be the same as to learn, and to act as to suffer, so that it will be necessary that every teacher should learn, and every agent suffer. Or shall we say that neither is it absurd that the energy of one thing should be in another? For teaching is the energy of the teacher, yet it is in something, and is not cut off, but is of this in this. Nor is it absurd that there should be one and the same energy of two things, not as if the essence were the same as in an upper and an under garment, but as that which is in capacity to that which energizes. Nor is it necessary that the teacher should learn, not even if to suffer and to do were the same, since they would not be the same as if there were one definition declaring the essence of the thing, as in an upper and an under garment, but they would be the same, just as the way from Thebes to Athens is the same as the way from Athens to Thebes, as was before observed. For not all the same things are inherent in things which are in any way whatever the same, but only in those of which the essence is the same. It does not follow, however, that if teaching is the same as discipline, to learn is the same as to teach, as neither, if there is one distance of things which are distant, is it one and the same thing for this to be distant from that, and that from this. In short, neither is teaching properly the same as learning, nor acting as being passive, but the motion in which these are inherent is the same. For to be the energy of this in this, and of this from this, differ in definition. Chapter 3. What motion, therefore, is, both universally and particularly, has been said, since it is not immanifest how each of its species should be defined. For mutation, according to quality, is the energy of that which may be so changed, so far as it possesses this capacity. Further, the energy of that which is effective and passive in capacity is more known so far as it is such, and that simply, and again in particulars, building or healing. After the same manner also we may speak concerning each of the other motions. Chapter 4. Since, however, the science concerning nature is conversant with magnitudes, motion, and time, each of which must necessarily be either infinite or finite, although not everything is either infinite or finite, as, for instance, passive quality or a point, for perhaps it is necessary that no one of things of this kind should be placed in either of these. Since this is the case, it is fit that he who engages in a discussion concerning nature should speculate the infinite, and consider whether it is or not, and, if it is, what it is. But that the speculation concerning the infinite pertains to this science is indicated by this circumstance, that all those who appear to have touched on a philosophy of this kind in a manner which deserves to be mentioned have discoursed about the infinite, and all of them consider it as a certain principle of beings. Some, indeed, as the Pythagoreans and Plato, consider it per se not as being an accident to anything else, but as having an essential subsistence, except that the Pythagoreans indeed consider the infinite as subsisting in sensibles, for they do not make number to be separate, and they assert that what is beyond the heavens is infinite. But Plato says that beyond the heavens there is not any body, nor ideas, because these are nowhere. He affirms, however, that the infinite is both in sensibles and in ideas. And the Pythagoreans, indeed, say that the infinite is the even in number, for this being comprehended and bounded by the odd imparts infinity to beings. They add that this is indicated by what happens in numbers. For nomons being placed about unity, and also being placed separately, sometimes another form is always produced, and at other times one and the same form remains. But Plato establishes two infinites, viz., the great and the small. All those, however, who discourse concerning nature always subject a certain other nature of those things which are called elements to the infinite, as, for instance, water or air, or that which subsists between these. But no one of those who make the elements to be finite introduces infinity. Such, however, as make infinite elements, as Anaxagoras and Democritus, say that the infinite is continuous by contact. the former from similar parts, but the latter from the all spermatic nature of figures. And the former indeed asserts that any part whatever is similarly mingled with the whole, because he saw that everything is generated from everything. For hence he seems to have said that all things once subsisted together, as this flesh and this bone, and in like manner everything else. All things, therefore, thus subsisted, and consequently together, for the principle of separation is not only in each, but likewise of all. For since that which is generated from such a body, and there is a generation of all things, though not together, it is also necessary that there should be a certain principle of generation, but this is one which he calls intellect. Intellect, however, operates from a certain principle by understanding, so that it is necessary that all things should have once subsisted together, and once have begun to be moved. But Democritus says that none of the principles were produced one from the other, though at the same time common body itself is the principle of all things, differing in magnitude and figure according to the parts. That this theory, therefore, pertains to physical concerns is, from what has been said, evident. Rationally, too, do all philosophers consider the infinite as a principle, for it cannot be in vain, nor can any other power be present with it than that of a principle. For all things are either the principle or from the principle. But of the infinite there is no principle, since otherwise it would have an end. Again, it is also unbegotten and incorruptible, as being a certain principle. For that which is generated must necessarily receive an end, and end is the corruption of everything. Hence, as we have said, there is a principle of this, but this appears to be the principle of other things. It likewise appears to comprehend and govern all things, as those assert who do not introduce other causes beside the infinite, such as intellect or friendship. It would seem also that this is divine, for it is immortal and indestructible, as Anaximander says, and most of the physiologists. Chapter 5. But a belief that there is something infinite is produced in those who consider it from 5 arguments especially. From time, for this is infinite. From the division in magnitudes, for mathematicians also use the infinite. Further still, from this, that thus generation and corruption will not fail if that is infinite, whence that which is generated is taken away. And again, because that which is finite is always bounded with reference to something, so that it is necessary that there should be no end, if it is always necessary that one thing should be bounded with reference to another. But that which especially produces credibility, and is the principal argument, is what causes a common doubt in all men. For in consequence of intellection never failing, number also appears to be infinite, and mathematical magnitudes, and that which is beyond the heavens. And since that which is beyond is infinite, body also appears to be infinite, and it would seem that there are infinite worlds. For why is there rather void here than there? So that if there is bulk in one place, it is also necessary that it should be everywhere. If also there is a vacuum and an infinite place, it is necessary that there should be an infinite body. For in things which have a perpetual subsistence, capacity differs nothing from being. The speculation of the infinite is, however, attended with doubt. For many impossibilities happen both to those who do not admit that it has a subsistence, and to those who do. Further still, in what manner does it subsist? Whether as essence, or as an essential accident to a certain nature? Or does it subsist in neither of these modes, but is nevertheless infinite, or infinites in multitude? It is, however, especially the province of a natural philosopher to consider if there be sensible infinite magnitude. End of chapter 5 of Book 3. Chapter 6. In the first place, therefore, we must define in how many modes the infinite may be said to subsist. According to one mode, then, that is called infinite which is not naturally adapted to be passed through, just as voice is said to be invisible. But according to another mode, that is infinite the passage through which is without an end, or which has scarcely an end, or which, though naturally adapted to be passed through or to have an end, yet has not. Again, everything which is infinite is so either by addition or division, or according to both these modes. It is not possible, therefore, that the infinite, which is itself a certain infinite, should have a subsistence separate from sensibles. For if the infinite is neither magnitude nor multitude, but essence and not accident, it will be indivisible, for that which is divisible will either be magnitude or multitude. But if it is indivisible, it will not be infinite unless in the same manner as voice is invisible. Those, however, who say that there is the infinite do not assert that it thus subsists, nor do we investigate it as a thing of this kind, but as that which cannot be passed through. But if the infinite subsists according to accident, it will not be the element of beings so far as it is infinite, as neither is the invisible the element of speech, although voice is invisible. Further still, how is it possible that anything should be the infinite itself, since neither number nor magnitude can be so, of which the infinite is a certain essential passive quality? For it is still less necessary that there should be infinite than that there should be number or magnitude. It is also evident that it is not possible for the infinite to be, as subsisting in energy, and as essence and a principle. For whatever part of it is assumed will be infinite if it is partible, for the essence of infinite and the infinite are the same, since the infinite is essence or substance, and is not predicated of a subject. Hence it is either indivisible or divisible into infinites. But it is impossible that there can be many infinites in the same thing. As air, however, is a part of air, so likewise infinite is a part of infinite, if it is essence and a principle. It is therefore impartible and indivisible. But this is impossible, since it is infinite in energy, for it is necessary that it should be a certain quantum. The infinite, therefore, subsists according to accident. But if this be the case, it has been said that it cannot be called a principle, but this appellation must be given to that to which it is an accident, viz. Air, or the even number. So that they pronounce absurdly who thus speak, as the Pythagoreans assert, for at the same time they make the infinite to be essence, and distribute it into parts. Chapter 7. Perhaps, however, this inquiry is more universal, whether it be possible that the infinite can subsist in mathematical entities, in intelligibles, and in things which have no magnitude. But we consider with respect to sensibles, and those things which we make the subject of our discussion, whether body, infinite in augmentation, is in these or not. To those, therefore, who consider the affair logically, it may seem that there is not, from the following arguments. For if the definition of body is that which is bounded by superficies, there will not be an infinite body, neither intelligible nor sensible, but neither will there be number, so as to be separate and infinite, for number, or that which possesses number, is numerable. If, therefore, that which is numerable can be numbered, it will be possible for the infinite to be passed through. But to those who consider the affair more physically, it will be evident that there cannot be a body of infinite magnitude from the following arguments. For it can neither be composite nor simple. An infinite body, therefore, will not be a composite if the elements are finite in number, for it is necessary that contraries should always be more than one, and be equalized, and that one of them should not be infinite. For if the power in one body should be in any manner whatever surpassed by the power of another, as for instance, if fire is finite, but air is infinite, and equal fire surpasses in power equal air, however much it may be multiplied if it only possesses a certain number, yet at the same time it is manifest that the infinite will surpass and corrupt that which is finite. But it is impossible that each of the elements should be infinite, for that is body which has interval on all sides, and that is infinite which has extension without bound, so that an infinite body will be extended on all sides to infinity. Neither can an infinite body be one and simple, nor, as some say, that which is beside the elements from which these are generated. Nor, in short, can it have any subsistence, for there are some who make this infinite to be neither air nor water, lest other things should be destroyed by the infinity of these, since they possess contrariety to each other. Thus air is cold, but water is moist, and fire is hot, of which, if there is one infinite, other things would have been already corrupted. But now they say that is different from which all these are produced. It is, however, impossible that there can be a thing of this kind, not because it is infinite, for concerning this something common must be said, which similarly accords with every body, viz. With air and water, and any other whatever, but because there is no such sensible body beside those that are called the elements, for everything is dissolved into that from which it is composed, so that here there would be something else beside air and fire, earth and water. But there does not appear to be any such thing. Neither fire, therefore, nor any other of the elements can be infinite. For, in short, exclusively of some one of them being infinite, it is impossible that the universe, although it be finite, can either be or be generated some one of them, conformably to what Heraclitus says, that all things once were fire. There is also the same reason in the one body, which natural philosophers introduce beside the elements. For all things are changed from one contrary into another, as for instance from the hot into the cold. But it is necessary also from these things to consider respecting every body, whether it is possible or not, that there can be an infinite sensible body. In short, however, that it is impossible there can be a body sensible and infinite is evident from hence, that everything sensible is naturally adapted to be somewhere, that there is some place of everything, and that there is the same place of the part and of the whole, as of the whole earth and one clod, and of fire and a spark. So that if this infinite sensible body is of one form, it will either be immovable or always borne along, though this is impossible, for why should it rather be carried downward than upward, or anywhere else? I mean, for instance, if it is a clod of earth, where will it be moved? Or where will it abide? For the place is infinite of a body kindred to it. Whether, therefore, will it occupy the whole place? And in what manner? What likewise and where will be its permanency and its motion? Or will it be everywhere permanent? It will not, therefore, be moved. Or will it be everywhere moved? It will not, therefore, be at rest. But if the universe is dissimilar, places also will be dissimilar. And first, there will not be one body of the universe except by contact. Secondly, these will either be finite or infinite in species. And they cannot indeed be finite, for some will be infinite and others not, if the universe be infinite, as for instance, water or fire. But a thing of this kind brings destruction to contraries, as we have before observed. Hence, no one of the physiologists has made either fire or earth to be one and infinite, but water or air, or that which is a medium between these, because the place of each, viz. Of fire and earth, is evidently definite, and these verge to the upper and lower region. But if the parts are infinite and simple, the places also will be infinite, and there will be infinite elements. If, however, this is impossible, and places are finite, it is also necessary that the whole should be finite. For it is impossible that body and place should not be equal in dimensions, since neither is the whole place so great as not to be able to admit at the same time body, though at the same time neither will body be infinite, nor is body greater than place. For otherwise there will either be a vacuum, or a body which is naturally adapted to be nowhere. Anaxagoras, however, speaks absurdly concerning the permanency of the infinite. For he says that the infinite itself supports itself, and this because it is in itself, for nothing else contains it, as if where anything is, it is naturally there. But this is not true. For a thing may be situated in a certain place by force, and not where it is naturally adapted to be. If, therefore, the whole is by no means moved, for that which is established in itself and is in itself is necessarily immovable, yet it should be said why it is not naturally adapted to be moved. For it is not just that he who thus speaks should be dismissed, since there may be anything else which is not moved, but nothing hinders it from being naturally adapted to be moved. For earth also is not borne along, nor if it were infinite could it be locally moved in consequence of being restrained by the middle. It would not, however, remain in the middle, because there is not any other place into which it could be moved, but because it is not natural to it so to be moved, though indeed it might be said that the earth supports itself. If, therefore, this is not the cause of the permanency of the earth if it were infinite, but its gravity is the cause, and that which is heavy abides in the middle, and the earth is in the middle, in like manner also the infinite will abide in itself through some other cause, and not because it is infinite, and will itself support itself. At the same time, likewise, it is manifest that it is necessary every part of it should abide. For as the infinite abides supported in itself, so likewise whatever part of it is assumed will abide in itself. For the places of the whole and the part are of the same species, as of the whole earth and a clod the place is downward, and of the whole of fire and a spark the place is upward. So that if the place of the infinite is in itself, there will be the same place also of a part of the infinite. It will abide, therefore, in itself. And in short, it is evident that it is impossible to say that there is an infinite body, and at the same time that there is a certain place for bodies, if every sensible body either possesses gravity or levity. And if it is heavy, it has a natural tendency to the middle, but if light, it naturally tends upward. For it is necessary that an infinite body should be such. But it is impossible that the whole should be passive in either way, or the half in both ways. For how will you divide, or how will one part of the infinite be above and another below? Or how will it have extremes or a middle? Further still, every sensible body is in place, but the species and differences of place are upward and downward, before and behind, to the right hand and to the left. And these things not only thus subsist with relation to us, and by position, but have a definite subsistence in the universe itself. But it is impossible that these things should be in the infinite, and in short, it is impossible that there should be an infinite place. But every body is in place, and therefore it is also impossible that there should be an infinite body. That likewise which is somewhere is in place, and that which is in place is somewhere. If therefore the infinite cannot be a quantum, for in this case it would be of some definite quantity, as for instance of 2 cubits or 3 cubits, since these signify a definite quantity, so likewise with respect to that which is in place, because it is somewhere, but this is either upward or downward, or in some other of the 6 intervals, each of which is a certain boundary. From these things, therefore, it is evident that there is not an infinite body in energy. Chapter 8. That many absurdities, however, will happen if the infinite has not any subsistence whatever is evident. For of time there will be some beginning and end. Magnitudes also will not be divisible into magnitude, and number will not be infinite. But this being determined, since it does not appear that either of these consequences can be admitted. On this account it is evident that the infinite in one respect is, and in another respect is not. But one thing is said to have a subsistence in capacity, and another in energy. And the infinite partly subsists by addition, and partly by ablation. With respect to magnitude, however, that it is not infinite in energy we have already said, but it is infinite by division. For it is not difficult to subvert the hypothesis of indivisible lines. It remains, therefore, that the infinite is in capacity. That, however, which is infinite in capacity is not to be assumed as that which will be infinite in energy, in the same manner as if this thing has the capacity of becoming a statue, it will be a statue. But since being is predicated in many ways, as a day is, and a contest is, because another and another is always becoming to be, so also is the infinite, for in these there is both capacity and energy. For the Olympic games are both because a contest may be effected, and because it is becoming to be. But the infinite is manifest differently in time, in men, and in the division of magnitudes. For in short, the infinite thus subsists, because another and another part may always be assumed, and that which is assumed is always finite, but there is always another and another part, so that the infinite must not be considered as this particular thing, as for instance a man or a house, but as a day and a contest are said to subsist, the being of which is not generated as a certain essence, but always consists in generation or corruption, which, though they are finite, yet there is always another and another. This, however, happens in magnitudes, that remaining which was assumed, but in men and time, these being corrupted so as not to fail. But the infinite, according to addition, is in a certain respect the same as that according to division. For in that which is finite according to addition, it takes place conversely, since, so far as it is seen to be divisible to infinity, so far it appears to be added to that which is finite. For in a finite magnitude, if any one, assuming a definite part, again assumes it in the same ratio, not taking the same part of the whole in that ratio, he will not arrive at the end of the finite magnitude. But if he so increases the ratio as always to assume the same magnitude, he will arrive at the end, because every finite quantity is consumed by any finite quantity. The infinite, therefore, does not subsist in any other way than this, for it has its being in capacity, and in division, and diminution. It is also in energy in the same manner as we say a day and a contest are. It is likewise in capacity in the same manner as matter, and it does not subsist per se like that which is finite. Hence it is thus infinite in capacity according to addition, because we say it is after a certain manner the same as the infinite according to division, for it is always possible to assume something beyond it. It does not, however, on this account surpass every definite magnitude, as in division it surpasses every definite magnitude, and will be less, so that it is not possible for the infinite to surpass every magnitude by addition, even in capacity, unless the infinite should be in energy from accident, according to the assertion of those physiologists who introduce an infinite body beyond the world, the essence of which is air, or some other infinite of this kind. But if it is not possible that an infinite sensible body can thus subsist in energy, it is evident that neither can the infinite, according to addition, subsist in capacity, unless, as we have said, in a manner vice versa to division. For Plato also on this account introduces two infinites, because both in increase and diminution there appears to be transcendency, and a progression to infinity. Though, however, he introduced two, he did not use them. For neither is there infinity in numbers by diminution or division, since unity is a minimum, nor by increase, for he extends number as far as to the decad. Chapter 9. The infinite, however, happens to subsist in a way contrary to what it is asserted to be by others. For the infinite is not that beyond which there is nothing, but it is that of which there is always something beyond. The truth of this is evinced in rings, which are said to be infinite because they have not the part in which the seal is fixed, on which account something beyond may always be assumed, though this is said according to a certain similitude, and not properly. For it is necessary that this property should be inherent, and that the same thing should never be assumed. But this is not the case in a circle, since that alone which is successive is always different. The infinite, therefore, is this, of which some quantity being taken, it is always possible to assume something beyond. But that pertaining to which there is nothing beyond is perfect and a whole. For thus we define the whole, that of which nothing is absent pertaining to the parts, as, for instance, the whole man, or the whole chest. But as we define particulars, so likewise that which has a proper and principal subsistence, as, for instance, the whole is that pertaining to which there is nothing beyond, but that pertaining to which something external is absent, that is not all, whatever it may be that is absent. With respect, however, to the whole and the perfect, they are either entirely the same or allied by nature, but nothing is perfect which has not an end, and the end is a bound. On this account it is proper to think that Parmenides spoke better than Melissos. For the latter says that the infinite is a whole, but the former that the whole is finite, and equally balanced from the middle. For to conjoin the infinite with the universe and the whole is not to connect line with line. Chapter 10. Hence also they assume those venerable conceptions of the infinite, such as that it comprehends all things, and that it contains the universe in itself, in consequence of possessing a certain similitude with the whole. For the infinite is the matter of the perfection of magnitude, and is the whole in capacity, but not in energy. But it is divisible by diminution and reciprocal addition. It is also a whole and finite, not essentially, but through another, and it does not comprehend, but is comprehended so far as it is infinite. Hence also it is unknown, so far as infinite, for matter has not form. So that it is evident that the infinite has rather the relation of a part than of a whole, for matter is a part of the whole, just as brass is a part of a brazen statue. If, however, it comprehends both insensibles and intelligibles, the great and the small, it is also necessary that it should comprehend intelligibles. But it is absurd and impossible that what is unknown and indefinite should comprehend and bound. Chapter 11. It happens, however, agreeably to reason, that the infinite should not by addition appear so as to surpass every magnitude, but that this should be effected by division. For as matter is comprehended within, so likewise the infinite. But form comprehends. It is also conformable to reason that in number the boundary should be in that which is least, but that in a progression to a greater multitude every multitude should always be surpassed, and that in magnitudes the contrary should take place. For in a progression to that which is least, every magnitude is surpassed, but in a progression to that which is a greater, there is not infinite magnitude. But this is because the one is indivisible, whatever one it may be. Thus man is one man, and not many men. But number is more than one, and is certain quantities, so that it is necessary to stop at the indivisible. For 2 and 3 are paronymus names, and in like manner every other number. But we may always conceive a progression to the more. For the bisections of magnitude are infinite, so that the infinite is in capacity, and not in energy, but always that which is assumed surpasses every definite multitude. This number, however, is not separate from the bisection, nor does the infinity remain, but is generated in the same manner as time, and the number of time. But in magnitudes the contrary takes place. For continued quantity is indeed divisible to infinity, but there is not an infinite progression to that which is greater. For as much as can be in capacity, so much also may be in energy, So that since no sensible magnitude is infinite, it is not possible that there should be a transcendency of every definite magnitude. For if this were possible, there would be something greater than the universe. The infinite, however, is not the same in motion, magnitude, and time, as if it were one certain nature, but the posterior is denominated with relation to the prior. Thus motion is called infinite because the magnitude is prior in which it is moved, or changed in quality, or increased, but time is infinite through motion. At present, therefore, we use these, but afterward we shall endeavour to say what each of them is, and why every magnitude may be divided into magnitudes. What we have said, however, does not subvert the theory of mathematicians, while it denies that the infinite subsists in such a manner as to be an energy with respect to increase, as that which cannot be passed through. For mathematicians do not now want, nor do they use the infinite, but they only assume that such quantity as they wish to employ is finite. But any other magnitude whatever may be divided in the same manner as the greatest magnitude. It is of no consequence, therefore, with respect to the demonstration, if it should be made in a lesser line, but the infinite will be in those magnitudes which have a subsistence. Chapter 12. Since, however, causes receive a fourfold division, it is evident that the infinite is a cause as matter, that the essence of it is privation, and that the continuous and the sensible are that which is an essential subject. But it is manifest that all others use the infinite as matter, on which account also it is absurd to make the infinite that which comprehends, and not that which is comprehended. Chapter 13. It now remains that we enumerate the reasons through which the infinite appears not only to subsist in capacity, but as that which is definite. For some of these reasons are not necessary, and against others certain other true objections may be urged. For neither is it necessary that there should be an infinite sensible body in energy in order that generation may not fail, since it is possible that the corruption of one thing may be the generation of another, since the universe is finite. Further still, to touch and to be finite differ from each other, for the former is a relative and pertains to a certain thing, since whatever touches something, and is an accident to something finite. But that which is finite is not a relative, nor can anything whatever touch anything whatever. To believe likewise in the existence of infinite magnitude, because it can be conceived, is absurd. For excess and defect are not in the thing, but in the conception of it. For any one may conceive each of us to be manifoldly greater than he is, by increasing him infinitely. Yet a man will not on this account surpass a city in dimensions, or be of such a magnitude as we possess, because some one has conceived him to be so, but because he does possess such a magnitude. This, however, is accidental. But time, motion, and intellection are infinite, that which is assumed not remaining. But magnitude is neither infinite by diminution, nor by intellective increase. And thus concerning the infinite we have shown in what manner it is, and in what manner it is not, and what it is. End of Book 3 of Physics.